Hi, everyone. My name is Stephen Paw, and I'm the managing editor at CBR.com.
And I'm Ben Kendrick, the publisher of ScreenRant.com.
And together, we are the First Rule. This is a podcast where we go through all of our social media channels and read the comments for some reason. Join us on our mission. Ben, what is going on with Marvel right now?
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, we have a Moon Knight that has been officially cast. So Keanu Reeves had previously been rumored. There were a couple other actors that had been rumored for the role. A lot of people may or may not be familiar with the character of Moon Knight. Spoiler alert, that may be one of the comments, hints at that. But officially, Oscar Isaac from, Star Wars fame, gonna be playing Moon Knight, Mr. Mark Spector. So, we'll jump into the comments. There was a bunch of different reactions to this, but like surprisingly, people were very positive about it. We'll kind of unpack that a little bit. I have some theories as to why that is. Um, but getting to the beginning of a conversation about Moon Knight, I feel like, we know about Iron Man, we know about the Hulk. These are really well known characters. Brendan Ferreira wrote us and said, "Wow, that's actually a good cast. I remember the one Moon Knight comic that I did have when I was like 10 years old, and he does look very similar." So that is a relatively recurring theme amongst the comments, is everybody talking about how they, how much they like this character in the one comic they read, or the one time they saw him in an animated show, or the one time that he was, guest starring in one of the crossover comics or something. I get the impression that a lot of people don't know much about Moon Knight. You and I were discussing a little bit about the character before the podcast. And one of the biggest things that I want to highlight about the character is that he has multiple personalities. So Matthew Casterline said, Oscar Isaac is a great casting decision. Oscar can bring all of the Spectre's personalities to life in a fun and awesome way. So I want to kind of unpack a little bit like who Moon Knight is, like give us the brief rundown of this character. You're a comic master, the managing editor of comicbookresources.com. I feel like you are a little bit better equipped to actually like unpack the character for us really quickly.
Yeah. Okay. So the the brief, I guess, unpacking of the Moon Knight character is that he was created in the late 70s and has been either taken as or mistaken for a Batman pastiche, right? He is
Yeah.
somebody who works in the night and instead of wearing just all black or gray or variations thereof, wears white, ostensibly so that the villains can see him coming. That's always been kind of his line. He started off as kind of a villain and slowly but surely, well, actually quite quickly, became a hero thereafter because he was quite popular. Like it was a very cool design. This stark white against the midnight sky, very much like a moon. Hint, hint. And sort of also just became this Batman, Bruce Wayne kind of dude. So a lot of people were like, that's just Marvel's Batman. I don't know, I'm dancing like this, but when I get to talking about
Yeah.
Moon Knight, I get a
I don't
little
know.
jive on me. Um,
He's rich. He's rich. He uses gadgets. He has some superpowers originally, but those were kind of taken away from him. They were tied to the lunar phases of the moon initially. Like they were stronger when it was a full moon and stuff like that.
Right. So, like, his powers are tied to Khonshu. So, Khonshu is the Egyptian deity of the moon. He is known as the Fist of Khonshu. So, he is his sort of agent in the real world space and acts as such. That sort of gets looped in and then taken out more as the ebb and flow of comics history goes along. Right now, it's humongous because they just wrapped up a story arc in Jason Aaron's run on the Avengers called, I think, The Rise of Khonshu. I can't remember the exact title of it. It's really good. But basically, Moon Knight in this comic just beats the hell out of all of the Avengers by taking all of their powers. It's a great run. And if they ever get to that in the MCU, which they never will, it'd be very interesting. But to your point earlier about all of the different personalities of this, that was something that did develop later on. As we were talking about before on the show, it's kind of like like Matches Malone is a character that Batman adopted to undercut the underworld, and it's this persona that he puts on with this fake face and like this toothpick. Moon Knight, similarly, Mark Spector developed also other ones, and to get away from the kind of mercenary character that he was before, and to also adopt when he needed to have a disguise. But yes, that is the basic ins and outs of it. And right now, they lean very, very hard into him having distinct personalities,
Yeah. And
which is cool.
and you were talking earlier too, that's like Mr. Knight, Moon Knight, and then Mark Spector are also kind of these different versions of the superhero kind of component of his personalities, basically. Like Moon
Yeah,
Knight
yeah.
and
So
Mr. Knight are kind of different versions of the same character in one way.
of the
As
same
far
kind
as
of
his
superhero.
personalities. Yeah.
Yeah, that came about in, I think it was 2015, 2014. Moon Knight relaunched with Warren Ellis and Declan Shelby, where they really introduced the Mr. Knight character who wears a three-piece white suit, it's beautiful, pristine.
Right.
That's contrast against the straight up superhero of Moon Knight who has like the cape and stuff like that. Which is an amazing run as well. And everybody should check that out because it's really good. All of the stuff that they've been doing with Moon Knight recently should feed into the show or the movie.
Yeah, so that's the thing is like we don't know exactly like what version of the character they're ultimately going to deliver us. I'm assuming it's a version that doesn't have the superpowers and is more about the personalities and more about him being kind of a detective and navigating, the criminal underworld or something like that. I would think, but I don't know.
I don't know either. I kind of hope they do have it. Like like I think you mentioned, his powers do ebb and flow with the phases of the moon, and as Khonshu is stronger when the moon is full, so is his agent of retribution and vengeance. Really,
Right.
I can see some of that feeding into it. Like there's a pretty funny moment in it, but I think would like lend itself well to the now dead, I guess, Netflix thing. So he was fighting Iron Fist. In the comics, Iron Fist like does all these cool things, and they're all called like flaming tiger kick thing or like super
Yeah.
toenail claw, and it's just like
Right.
Moon Knight just using, and it says it under his, and it's just like fist of Khonshu, fist of Khonshu, fist of Khonshu, and he's like breaking this dude. And I think that is kind of like
That's
it's a
cool.
great part in it, in that new Avengers run that I mentioned earlier. And I think that something like that would be very cool to incorporate into the mystic mythos of something that already exists on a street level, like Iron Fist. Like I think they've already established that, and they can kind of go back to that well and tell both stories. And what's nice about things like dissociative personality disorder or anything like that is that you can tell it from different perspectives. So oftentimes, Mr. Knight, who we mentioned before, goes underground and he kind of does all these kinds of things. But Moon Knight is the kind of I will punch a ghost in the face kind of stuff. So they could have three shows in one here, or three movies in one, and that would be incredible. Um, and what I think, if I can throw my little fan casting into here, first of all, I think that Oscar Isaac is a great inspired choice for one of the personalities. I think they should slowly roll out different announcements for each personality and like not let you really know what's going on. I think that would be wicked. And there's some diversity in there. Like why not? Why can't one of them, like instead of this Stephen Grant or whomever, be a black woman, for example? I think that would really offer some interesting perspectives into a show like this, one that they haven't really done
It's
before.
I'm laughing because I'm trying to find okay, yeah. So Jamin Aguilar wrote and he said Moon Knight is my favorite Marvel character. So now you'll get why I'm laughing at what you're saying. Moon Knight is my favorite Marvel character, so whoever plays him, I'm fine with it as long as they stay true to the role and his origins. So like you're pitching a movie here where like all these different people like play different versions of his personality, which is I would think a pretty strong departure from kind of what fans are expecting, I would say, at least in terms of like the portrayal of the character.
Maybe, but I mean, sometimes those personalities in the past have manifested as like Spider-Man and other superheroes. So,
Okay.
people he wanted to be or people who he looks up to. So it could be anybody, really. Like it doesn't really matter.
And he would physically transform in those like when that happens?
Not him. but his mind would see them and he would
Okay, I
interact with
see,
them
I
in
see,
that
I
way.
see, I see, I see, I
So
see.
he would kind
Okay,
of
so to the
effervesce their
outside
being.
world, he would. Okay, so to the outside world, he would look like Oscar Isaac, but we would be getting shots of a black woman or something in your version of this because that's what he would see in the mirror, like almost Quantum Leap or something. It's like the outside world sees
Kinda.
a thing, but we would be seeing the version of the personality that better embodies like that personality or something.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that really what you just said there is what gets to the heart of it, which is I would just want a quantum leap in
Yeah, that's
Marvel.
it. Yeah.
That's
I
just
think I
basically what
actually
I want.
I
I would
do
go there.
sort of actually like the idea of Oscar Isaac having to like marry those performances. So like you would step outside of his perception and like he would be acting like one of these other personalities and that would line up with the actor or the actress playing that personality. I do kind of like the idea. I don't know why you hire Oscar Isaac to just play the one personality though. So it's like I'm of the opinion that probably he's playing all these personalities in spite of your inspired, idea here.
Yeah, I mean, okay. What I was thinking about earlier today, because I knew we were going to come on and talk about this, is the Imaginarium of Doctor Parnassus, right? And now the what fed into that particular decision was obviously the tragedy of Heath Ledger's passing, but they did have the same role played by three different people, and I think maybe that was looked down upon as a not great or well remembered movie, but I thought that was an interesting way to approach that situation. In this case, it would be a thematic way to do it and one that you could really weave into the tale, which would be a weird mystery that you're kind of unpacking as the thing goes along. And an interesting way too of studying that particular um, issue that he is dealing with in the quote unquote multiple personalities disorder, because you would be like you as the audience would be going through this with him and not really like the way that they tell the story could be very confusing in a very interesting kind of way. So that's why I think they could do it. I
Yeah,
think
that
that's
makes
kind of a
sense.
cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, the one thing that came up a lot in our comments was also that we were reporting it as being cast versus being in negotiations, which I even said kind of in this podcast that we've cast our Moon Knight. Danny Gambero said, "Why are you saying he has been cast when he's in negotiations?" And just for our listeners, like, and our viewers, the reason that we often do that is because when something comes through the trades like this, it's generally because the publicists are like kind of making that announcement through the trade. So like a lot of times we will say something has been cast because these kind of announcements don't fall apart the way like rumored casting or something does. This is basically like he has the role is his if he wants it, and maybe they're like inking the last little bits of the deal. So that was a kind of a common thing that people were commenting on on our Facebook page and stuff like that. All right, well, I'll finish off with my comment of the week to close out this conversation, then I'll hand it over to you for our Jedi conversation, wherever that's going to go. So Milton E. Bordeaux Jr. said, "If Chris Evans, aka Human Touch, I'm sure he meant Human Torch, killed it as Cap, then this guy can do the same for Moon Knight." So I think that's a good point. We'll pretend like Apocalypse didn't happen. That wasn't Oscar Isaac's fault. He's going to do great as Moon Knight. Although I did like Chris Evans' Human Torch. I will say that.